I get upset when I see these videos and they talk about the doubles experiment and they go for some fanatical view instead of actually looking what physically happens. It's Give me a second. Okay.
Since all channels happen in a quantum superposition. A more familiar example of quantum superposition is the double slit experiment.
No.
A particle travels through a pair of slits to a detector screen. It does so as a probability wave, and the final landing point of the particle is determined by
No.
how these waves interfere with each other after passing through the slits.
Yeah.
It's more probable that the particle will land where the waves stack up.
Shut up. Listen to me right now. You can't go off saying it's more probable they'll land this way versus the other way, because let me explain to you what this wave is doing. It's a force wave of electromagnetism. So the way it works is if you have any waves that are pushing against each other in this pattern, okay, the sides where they're pushed on, everything ends up being blown into the single columns where the pushing waves don't exist. Okay? So, depending on where it ends up in the double slit experiment in the first place, by the way, the particle only goes through one of these waves, one of these slits. The electromagnetic field goes through both. It makes the interference pattern that creates the directional lines that you see, and these crests, okay, are the waves that are not interfering with each other. Those spots where pressure from both sides is equal. Okay? And so when there is the constant pressure on the spot where there is the wave and pressure from the other side as well, you end up with just a basic pushing force that presses everything towards where those forces are at minimum. Those zones. Right here, right here, right there. These zones are empty because that's where pressure is at its minimum. It has interfered with itself. That's why they call it an interference pattern. But it's the electromagnetism, not the electron, that goes through these processes of making the waves. The electron itself is just a little dot that goes through the all of this stuff. It's shot through to the other side. So the reason why we end up with the scattering and lack of... Oh, by the way, this is a bad interpretation. Look at how... If I'm not mistaken, hold on. Yeah, whoever animated this is stupid, because let me explain to you what does not happen. This and that. Because the landing pattern, okay, is designed in the same direction as the waves. That's not where the particles end up. Anyone with any bit of paying attention would tell you this animation is a complete lie. You can test it at home by pressing a wave through some stuff and then having, like, I don't know, a seasoning on the top of the water, And what you'll end up with is these groupings of where they end up, and that's based off of the interference pattern. If you record it, you can tell where the interference pattern is this empty space where the waves are not. The empty space is where you end up with the particles at the end, because that is where everything was pushed towards. It's pushed towards that empty space. It's ridiculous to think that the particles will end up at the part where there is the waves, because they are the ones doing the pushing towards the sides. They are the ones making the empty landing spots. Empty here is where particles are. Empty here is where waves are. This is a bad animation. Who made this animation and why did you use it? Why did you check this? This is not only blatant lying on a basic scale, but also a bad representation showing you something that doesn't happen.
And less likely where they cancel in destructive.
No. He literally even says it. More likely where there's constructive interference. What? Hold on.
After passing through the slits, it's more probable that the particle will land where the waves stack up via constructive interference and less.
That is the opposite of what happens. Literal the opposite. No one says that. No one in their right mind would say that. This guy isn't in his right mind, or I should say the entire PBS spacetime, who's been quoting this double slit experiment so many times. Let me tell you something. Interference pattern, right? Easy to search. Let's search it up. Freaking scroll down. I need to type it to interference of waves. Okay, so we have multiple, here's an example, and then you have this type of thing. Okay, you end up with this, where sound-based. Okay, there's lots of interference of waves. But when we talk about with, oh, fuck you, go away! Not go away, but get smart, please. Fuck. Look. I'm looking for example of an actual diagram that shows like where it lands. It's not showing where it lands. Superposition. Superposition is a lie. Superposition doesn't exist. You want to know what superposition really is? Okay, let me tell you something. An electron is going 2,000 kilometers per second. What does that actually mean? It means in relation to its size, okay, it's moving 2.2 quadrillion atomic width per second. So when an electron is going around an atom, there are like 500 trillion of them. It is not multiple of them. It is the same electron orbiting. It does it so many times that it shows up as 500 trillion of itself simultaneously in the same area. Superposition can be explained by you going around the Earth so fast that you no longer can occupy the same space. You must move to the left. And so you do it again so fast, doubling your speed, that you end up with more of the copies of you, because you can no longer occupy the same space. So that's why you keep on moving. And if there are enough of you that you cannot go around the entire Earth, you jump off of the Earth. That's what happens when an electron jumps from one energy level to another. Its speed increased means its echoes increase. An echo is just the same itself, but because it is going so super incredibly fast, somehow held by the electromagnetic forces of a proton trying to hold it in place, Because it is going faster, it is spinning around the electron faster, and that is what makes it jump from the level that is the low level to the higher level. Why does it jump there? Why is it not on both? Because it is one electron. It can only exist in one shell. It can only exist in one shell. There's no reason for it to suddenly go slower and part of its experience go into the outer shell. When you're going that fast, you can only go in the area provided. Once you go faster, you have to jump up to another shell in order to occupy a space and not bump into yourself constantly. This is what happens. But nobody explains it like this, and I'm annoyed by every single one of you. Double slit experiment separate. What is happening in this video? This is a light-based system. Interesting, you get reflections backward. That makes sense. And where they interfere with each other, that's where you get the negative zones where there's nothing, because there is equal pressure on both sides. Yes, this is a light-based whatever, but I'm talking about electromagnetism. Where is electromagnetism and a good example of this shit? It's annoying. Where the fuck is... Good? Anything? Anyone? Does anyone show it correctly? Like... Don't give me credit. Neil, no, not Neil. Neil is... He's lost his privilege. He can only speak so much. And then if he says so many mistakes, I lose interest, faith. I don't stop listening. I just stop regarding it as and assumed it is definitely going to be true. If I'm more skeptical. What the frick is this? Nobody says it correctly. I hate this. Nobody, not even one, says it correctly. I don't need to explain anymore. Does this do it? Interference with light. Yes, this is because it's light. Electromagnetism in itself. Light. Yes, this is what happens. This is the thing. The electron is not light. The electron is a physical particle. It's a tiny little bar magnet thing. And it does things based off of its own electromagnetism. The electromagnetic field around it is basically light. Generally. I can't find anything that tells me what I'm trying to find and explain to you. Because nobody understands it. Nobody. Okay, there it is.
Scientists treat particles as if they are waves. Because a particle can be in so many
It's not.
various places, they seem to be
Because they're going stupid fast.
a continuous succession of oscillating waves. Imagine a string that is pulsating.
What's
The
pulsating?
string will arc and dip through peaks and troughs as it vibrates. A particle also behaves like this.
No. The electromagnetic field behaves like this. You're getting it wrong, again.
Although its possible path is a series of such overlapping waves, all happening at once.
No. Why do they get this wrong all the time? I don't care. I don't care. People are, they get this. What? Look at this.
Let's get some multiple ones. Yeah. All right. Ready?
This is fun.
1, 2, 3.
See, yeah? So this is the example of wave being created literally in the same thing or whatever.
Multiple ones. Yeah. All right. Ready? 1,
But this has nothing to do with regular actual physics unless you have like two sources aimed at each other. Nobody has this. This doesn't happen. It's irrelevant. Unless you're talking about sending the energy down a wire and the other energy down the wire, you end up with interference patterns like that. In there is different. This is an interesting statue. That's just flat out cool. I wanted to just show that. Anyway, so the double slit experiment, all the things that people keep on quoting so many times, they always get it wrong because the electromagnetic field is what makes the interference. And then what happens is the field pushes on one side and it pushes on the other side. Also, this happens, the same thing happens with acoustic levitation. Let me tell you about that. Acoustic levitation. How do you spell acoustic? I never said I could spell or type. Acoustic levitation. Okay, so here's the thing, you end up with this okay, shut up. I don't want to look at the Action Labs guy, but let me show you this. This is reality, okay? So here's the thing, right? All of the sounds, and it's not just happening in one spot, but because of the many sound waves all happening, yeah? What happens is, where there is constant pressure on all sides from the sound, the particle doesn't have the base place to go. If it tries to move, what happens usually is that the sound will redirect it back to these nodes of all pressure in all directions. Yeah, the same thing is happening in the double slit experiment. How can you not understand this? Because the pressure of the electromagnetic field is pushing on one side and the other side. It makes this empty space. The empty space is where pressure is equal. And that is why the electromagnetic field makes these empty spaces, makes these channels, okay? In these channels is where the electrons are flowing towards because they cannot move anywhere else. It's just like acoustic levitation because they are in the empty zones. They are not in with the waves. They are in the empty zones, the canceled out zones, the zones where everything is all pushing in the same amount. There's nowhere else for it to go. Okay, it's being pushed up, it's being pushed down. You can also tilt this on its side. It won't make any difference because it is pushing it forward as well as let's think about the three-dimensional space of a wave. It goes out like a big shell, okay? And because there are multiple shells all pushing, you end up with pressure on the left, the right, the top, and the bottom, all of it. The top shell up here, okay, provides the force on the other side. So it's like two hands clapping and pushing towards each other. Only you flip your hands around. So instead of clapping, you end up with like the two hands make a cup and they smash to each other. So what you end up with is a bunch of pushing in all directions because of the sources of sound are from all directions. And it literally, if you block off the source of the sound, the stuff stops levitating because it is no longer able to provide a push that will help its motion. So that's just what happens. You block off those sound waves, it is no longer able to give any more levitation. That's why they don't go back. They don't go back because there's nothing pushing them anymore to that spot. They have to be in that spot. They are placed there like little tweezers, okay? Something that doesn't interfere with the sound waves. This is just sound, okay? This is just sound. So if you apply this type of logic and understand it completely, you can fully understand why the electromagnetic field does the same thing in the double slit experiment. This is practical science at school. Please respond. Thank you. I love real scientists actually doing the fucking shit. Unlike the people like in this video who are not exactly focused. I don't know how they get unfocused so that they can say something such like positive. Okay, look, they talk about antimatter also in this video. They got that wrong also. Okay, let me tell you that. Early in the video, they talk about positive versus negative. Okay, let me tell you something very important about this. Very important about this little particle thing.
Negative electric charge also appears to balance the ledger.
So let me tell you something. If I am a positive, right? You attribute that to the pulling force. And if I am the negative, I attributed that to the pushing force. Yeah, is this incorrect? Well, in antimatter, what happens is you end up with the negative core of the particle pair, and the electron being positive is attractive. And so this is a problem because the negative is stronger than the force of the positive. And you think, well, it doesn't matter because then it's basically the reason why would antimatter ever form anything? Because negative matter having the positive wanting to go near it, right? What will really happen? The force of the negative is not as strong as the force of the positive, question mark, and you end up with the positive going into the negative, right? Possibly. And so that's a problem. The reason why real matter exists is because, or regular actual matter exists, is because the positive force is so strong trying to pull something away, but the negative force is stronger and is the thing that is attracting and going around this positive, the proton thing. So you end up with this attractive force by the atomic particle, but you end up with the I'm not coming closer to you from the electron. And in an anti-particle pair situation is that the core is like, oh, don't go near me. And the little one is like, but I want to be near you. And you would think that they would be able to cancel out. Then there's a chance that they are able to have the values that would cancel out. But the answer is in those values. How much attractive force is in the tiny little negative, the positive electron, and how much is in the antiproton? Okay, it's very important to understand because if you don't understand it, you won't understand why material does not form that way. Okay? Let's say you try to add another bit of negative into there. Well, the two negatives want to push away from each other. They don't attract each other. It's like the two sides of a magnet, yeah? If you have same push on the magnet, then you have this incredibly hard time pushing them together. You notice this when you put the south on the south or the north on the magnet. But if you go north-south, then the electromagnetism is able to flow through the magnet from the north to the south, because that is the attractive part, and the north is the repelling part. So, or whatever. So you end up with this flow from one to the other, and it goes around and it goes back through. This is what happens with electrons. They are normal north-south, tiny little bar magnets. So it's fascinating that you can have this attraction that happens. And it's fascinating that you can have this repulsion that happens. So if you end up with multiple repulsive megaparticles, they can't correlate to make something with neutrons, because they won't try to pull each other together. Instead, the one that is trying to pull itself together and make itself bigger is, guess what? That tiny positive electron. The positron, okay, or positive electron, is the one that's trying to group things together, trying to bind it together, okay? So you end up with multiple of these positive electrons. They mutually fuse together to make something bigger. They make, like, the freaking protons. They make the protons. So the antimatter and matter are not math equations, okay? They are physical objects with physical properties. So the tiny thing wanting to make a more positive are just going to flow together. They're going to clump, and eventually they will be overcoming the negative of the antiproton. They will easily overcome the negative of the antiproton, and they will do some interaction. Other material gets made. You end up with protons, neutrons. This is what happens. Get over yourself. Okay. Thank you. The anti-electron, the anti-proton system works well in the very one-one bonding idea. The moment you put more than one of them together, okay, it becomes hard to make anything that is significant. And the neutrons are not going to help, because neutrons are still, like, maybe they're in there, maybe they can bind things together a little bit, but it's not that point of where they bind. The point is they bind with the positive, so they bind with the electron. This makes a complete counterbalance. Okay? So you end up with regular matter that is the structure that it is, because the positive will attract and pull and stay around neutrons. And so you end up with the positive on the inside, negative on the outside, because that's where it is able to be. Positive can attract each other, the negative cannot. So that's what it is.